going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today, but first we're going to start out with a recap of the finals for the 2024 Vancouver Pro. So the finals just wrapped up. In 5th place, you had Beef Stew. In 4th place, you had Hussein. In 3rd place, you had Robin Strand. In 2nd place, Tim Budesheim. And in 1st, John Jewett. So let's talk about this. Let's look at the final comparisons here. So this is the top 5 finals call-out. Beef Stew made it into this call-out. I think he looked sharper at finals than he looked at prejudging, but I think overall the reason for him kind of placing where he did came down to his conditioning. And I talked about this a little bit this week going into the show when we were looking at like John Jewett's updates, comparing them to Beef Stew's. Stew's conditioning looked a little behind, and that was something we talked about. And I think that kind of proved to be true here, and that's why he slipped a little bit. So let's talk about Tim versus John, though. I was really, really impressed with Tim Budesheim here. And the interesting thing about Tim and all of these guys that were in the top 5, none of them have ever won an open show, including John Jewett, who had won a 212 show before, but not open. Now he's qualified for the Open Olympia for the first time. And it's pretty impressive. But Tim Budesheim, this is probably one of his best placings. I think his highest placing before this was 2nd. Really good conditioning. He looked really grainy and dry. He had like freak factor to him because he's so big. And that was the comment that I think I saw the most from people saying that they thought Tim was going to win, was that he's just so much bigger than John. He's really muscular, and for that reason, he was going to win. And I was really impressed by him. Like I said, conditioning was good. He was huge. His size, really impressive. But I think when you want to look at why did John beat him, when you look at this comparison, I think it really comes down to the structure and the flow of the physique, as well as conditioning. I do think that John was sharper than Tim, even though Tim was much bigger. Look at John in poses like the front double bicep, the front lat spread, even the way that John hits his most muscular with his hands on his hips. John has that really almost perfect X frame. His lats flare out, come down and taper into his waist. They flare back out with the legs. But that taper is something that Tim doesn't have quite as much. He's got a really kind of a wide waist. I wouldn't say he's blocky, but his waist is wide, and it really ruins that V-taper, that X-frame effect. And you can really see that in poses like the front double bicep. The lats don't really taper down into the waist that well. So with Tim, it's more of a structural issue. He's got really good size. His conditioning was good, but the structure just doesn't compare to John. And then on top of that, John was sharper. And, you know, Tim is significantly taller than John, too. So when you say bigger, yeah, I think he is probably like pound for pound bigger, like more muscular, but not by a ton. I think a lot of the size difference that you're looking at here is in the height difference. John is a pretty muscular dude. He's just shorter. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's kind of the wrap up of finals. Nothing too surprising here. This is pretty much, actually, this is exactly what I predicted at prejudging. This is word for word the predictions. Even though this was a little bit of a difficult one to predict, because like I said in the build-up for this show, there's really no clear front runner because none of these guys in this top 5 have ever won an open show. But let me know what you guys thought of the results in the comments down below. All right, so in addition to the Vancouver Pro, we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about today. The first thing, Urs Joins made a big announcement today on his Instagram page that he's actually going to be joining the Oxygen Gym training camp, which I think is a very fascinating move for a classic physique guy. Again, Oxygen has kind of had this track record for being kind of exclusively like it's for the big freaky guys. That's kind of what their reputation was built on, was like the big Rami, the Rolly Winkler, that kind of era. It was bringing in these massive dudes. And if you guys remember when Regan Grimes went over there, one of the reasons he left is he felt like they were pushing him to get too big. And it's interesting for Urs because Urs is already a guy that in the off season gets extremely big in terms of his body weight relative to the classic physique weight limit. And Urs still hasn't really ever acknowledged any type of potential move to open bodybuilding. But I still would really like to see how he would do in open. And I kind of wonder, how this move is going to impact his physique. Is he going to stay in classic physique, or is he going to work with them and maybe he gets so big working with the Oxygen guys that maybe he decides to go to open? I mean, obviously, there's definitely room for improvement with his physique for classic physique. That could probably be improved working with this Oxygen camp. His arms come to mind, which actually in these photos look pretty massive. But I kind of wonder now if Oxygen is making like a power move now they've got this Dubai Pro, because Bader Budai is the guy that's putting on that Dubai show with the $100,000 prize money. I've even heard rumors that next year or in future years that Dubai Pro is going to increase that prize money to match the Olympia, because seemingly, or maybe even exceed the Olympia, because seemingly Bader Budai has like unlimited resources and money. So it seems like they're making some kind of play to re-enter like the pro bodybuilding universe as far as like being a big name. Because keep in mind, they were a really big deal when they had Rami and Rolly. Like everyone was talking about the Camel Crew, they called it. But ever since then, they've kind of been laying low. Like I said, even Brandon Curry, he was working with Coach Abdullah, but at that point, when Brandon was winning the Olympia, Coach Abdullah was no longer with Oxygen Gym. So it's been kind of quiet as far as Oxygen Gym's direct involvement in like being this big figurehead in professional bodybuilding. And now they're making these plays like the Dubai Pro, like Samson Dauda joining the team, Urs Kalsinski joining the team. Now they've got a top 3 Olympian for classic physique with Urs, and a top 3 Olympian in open bodybuilding with Samson. So maybe over the next couple years, we see Oxygen Gym pick up more guys, and I'm very curious to see what happens with Samson being at Oxygen, with Urs being at Oxygen. Will it help them, or will it hurt them? I'm very curious to see what happens with this kind of, really, it's kind of an experiment, right? But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about Urs Kalsinski joining the Oxygen Gym training camp. Will it help him or hurt him? Let me know down below. Now, next up in the news, I don't typically talk about like fitness influencers. I've really tried to develop this channel more into just specifically talking about contest coverage and professional bodybuilding, like the actual sport itself, the IFBB, the NPC. So I don't think I've ever even made a video mentioning the Tren twins before, but they did their first bodybuilding show in the NPC, so now I think it qualifies as something we can talk about because they actually did well. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see them compete in the same class, which I think would have been fun to see, like who's the better twin. If they both just competed in straight-up bodybuilding, somebody has to place higher. That would have been interesting to see. But Mike did the open bodybuilding class, and Chris did classic physique. So this was at the NPC Southern States, and unfortunately, there's still not a whole lot of video or photos of this, so I scraped together what I could for the sake of this video. But Mike seemingly did better. He won open bodybuilding, so he got first, and Chris ended up placing second in the open classic physique. And then the novice division that he competed in, which is like a subdivision of classic physique, he won that, but didn't win like the main classic physique. And look, I saw some people being critical of how these guys looked, but honestly, I do think they looked good. You got to keep in mind, these are really young guys in their early 20s. This is their first competition. You can't expect these guys to come in right out the gate looking like IFBB pros. They're not going to have like insane pro level conditioning, no matter how much they've experimented with drugs or whatever. You got to set the bar kind of low. So I think you really have to view this in the context of these are really young dudes and it's their first show, their first prep. And in that context, I mean, the Chris competed in true novice. So I think if you just view it through that lens of these guys are not nationally qualified bodybuilders, they're not top level, even NPC guys, they're certainly not IFBB pros. They're just entry level. And for entry level guys, they look good. Do I think they're going to, jump to national level, nationally qualified, jump to the IFBB immediately? No. But overall, they look pretty good. Let me know what you guys think about how they looked in the comments down below. Now, next up in the news, I just thought this was interesting. There's a female bodybuilder that took a picture with Andrew Jacked this weekend. And notably, Andrew Jacked is one of the biggest bodybuilders, just period. Right now, he's one of the biggest. He's like over 300 pounds. He's one of the tallest guys. I think he's like 6'1", 6'2". And this female bodybuilder is like dwarfing him, out-angling him in this picture. I think this picture has to be Photoshopped, but I saw this going around. And it is pretty insane how big Natalia Amazonka looks in this picture. So I wanted to include it in this video for what it's worth. It's just an insane looking picture. Just knowing how big Andrew Jacked is. I've seen him in person. We've obviously all seen the videos, but in person, he is just a massive dude. And I would have to think that this Natalia girl, even with the Photoshop, she's got to be wearing like some crazy high heels or something too. Because like I said, Andrew's not just big, like weight-wise. He's a big dude, period. He's tall. But I am curious to hear what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you think it's Photoshopped? Do you think this chick is really just this big? Because from what I've seen from Andrew Jacked, he certainly hasn't gotten any smaller. But let me know down below. Now, next up in the news, we got the Dubai Pro coming up in 2 weeks. I think this is going to be a really big show. And another bodybuilder has thrown his hat into that ring that we haven't seen compete in a while. I really like his physique, and that would be Sibusiso Catello. He just posted and tagged me in the first physique update I've seen from him, like a formal physique update, in a pretty long time. And I'm excited to see him back on stage. I think this is going to be a really interesting lineup in Dubai. That prize money, 100 grand, is a lot for just some, it really is kind of just some random new show. It's not an established, like an Arnold Classic or an Olympia or a New York Pro. It's a really new a really new show. A lot of money. I think it's going to draw a lot of bodybuilders out of the woodwork. Guys like Sibusiso, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But Neckzilla, one of the guys that, he's blown off all these shows, but he's doing this one because the prize money's crazy. And then Beiruz, Nathan, Bonak, I think all of those guys are still doing that show. I feel like we're going to have almost, I think honestly it's going to be a better lineup than what we saw at the New York Pro. I think we're going to see almost like an Arnold Classic caliber lineup at this Dubai show. I think we're going to see some really good bodybuilders show up for this thing. And I think this lineup is going to be insane. I mean, think about some of the shows that we've seen so far this year. How many shows have had 3 guys that just won a show? They're all 3 show winners in the same lineup, let alone guys like Neckzilla and whoever else shows up. But Nathan, Bonak, and Beiruz all just won a show. They're all qualified for the Olympia. You don't really see a bunch of show-winning bodybuilders in any one show, really, except the Olympia or the Arnold. So just that in and of itself, I think, is exciting. And then also next weekend, we've got the Chicago Pro, so stay tuned for that as well. Make sure you subscribe. And the final story that I've got for you guys today, Keon Pearson, your reigning 212 Mr. Olympia, he did a guest posing today. Well, I guess I should say yesterday. And I got to be honest, he looks like he's put on some significant size. He definitely still had some wiggle room, a pretty significant amount, to fill out that 212 weight limit. If I'm not mistaken, he came in like just over 200 pounds. So he had I think he's still got like 10 pounds to be able to add. Of course, I think one of the biggest focuses for Keon needs to be conditioning because he's going up against Sean Clarita again. And I'm sure Sean, he's known for his conditioning. And I think, kind of like what we saw with Hadi. Hadi is a guy known for conditioning. He got beaten at the Olympia. He lost his title, and he came back with an absolute vengeance at both Arnold Classics, peeled to the bone. And I think that's what Keon has to watch out for. He looks like he's put on size. Great. Obviously, he's got a great structure, very aesthetic guy. Obviously, he's already won the title, so he's proven that he can do that. Conditioning, I think, needs to be his focus, because I have a feeling that Sean Clarita is going to come back to the Olympia this year in a similar fashion to what we saw from Hadi, with a chip on his shoulder, with something to prove, and the intention of making a statement. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think Keon will win another title this year based on what we've seen so far? Do you think Sean Clarita will be able to grab that title back? And what did you think about the results of this weekend's Vancouver Pro? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.